was simply the greatest manager in football. For more than a quarter of a century, Sir Alex Ferguson created magic at Manchester United, turning it into the most feared club in the world. Gerd and Thomas Müller share more than just the same surname. They are goal-scoring machines who brought World Cup success to Germany. Carlos Alberto captained Brazil to the ultimate glory and scored one of the greatest World Cup goals in history. This is the Immortals. Sir Alex Ferguson turned Manchester United into the biggest football club in the world and accumulated an extraordinary 49 trophies throughout a career that screams one word: immortal. It's been called one of the greatest games in European Cup history. On April 23, 2003, Real Madrid traveled to Old Trafford for the second leg of its quarter-final matchup with Manchester United. Real was a team stacked with superstars, including Zinedine Zidane and Ronaldo, and had won the first leg at home 3-1. United was looking at the Champions League to save its season. They were already out of the FA Cup and had only just started to recover after the worst start to a league campaign in 13 years. This was the most important game in the club's recent history. So what did Alex Ferguson do? He dropped the golden boy of English football. David Beckham had become a megastar, but that didn't matter to his longtime manager. He didn't like what was happening, so he benched his star player. The game turned out to be a classic, with Ronaldo scoring a hat-trick and Beckham coming on at the 63rd minute to score twice, as United fought back for a memorable 4-3 victory. While they didn't progress on aggregate, the night was another win for Ferguson, continuing his theme: no one is bigger than the club. His relationship with Beckham had been on the wane, and 2 months earlier, he'd kicked a boot at the midfielder's head following a frustrating FA Cup defeat. It was a freakish incident. If I tried it 100 or 1,000,000 times, it couldn't happen again. If I could, I would have carried on playing. At the end of that season, the England captain moved to Real Madrid, with Ferguson not missing a beat. He was almost 30 years into a career that already had him being declared the greatest manager in football.
Because he's so determined in just making things happen the way he wants it to happen. So anybody who's worked for him over the years, you know that he's got a way that he wants to work, and you've got to work within those boundaries. And because of that determination, I think that's what's made the boss a great manager.
A decade later, Ferguson's legacy as the best was official. He'd come a long way since taking over the part-time manager role with East Stirlingshire in Scotland when he was 32. After forging an impressive reputation in his homeland, Ferguson joined Manchester United in 1986, and so started one of the most enduring relationships in world sport. In 26 years at Old Trafford, he won 38 trophies, including 13 Premier League titles, 5 FA Cups, and 2 Champions League titles. He single-handedly transformed Manchester United into a global conglomerate before finally stepping aside at the age of 71 in 2013. And like every immortal, he has his own street named after him and a statue.
It's a proud moment that, normally people die before they see the statue, or people see the statue. I'm outliving death. But, you know, and an incredible journey I've had at the club that so many great players have managed, and some of them are here today, and it's through them. They actually should build a statue for all of them. They've been fantastic players to have. The marvellous bunch.
Still to come on the Immortals, the hothead from Glasgow with the Midas touch. Manchester United might have been awash with star players over Alex Ferguson's reign, but there were only 4 who he considered world-class footballers. At the top of the tree was Portugal's Cristiano Ronaldo, who spent 6 years at Old Trafford.
He was a fantastic player. He was the best. We had fantastic players in Scholes and Giggs, of course, and Cantona, and we were some fantastic footballers, but Ronaldo was just something else.
Ryan Giggs was Ferguson's longest-serving lieutenant and part of the manager's 13 Premier League titles. Midfielder Paul Scholes also played his entire professional career at Manchester United under Ferguson, while enigmatic Frenchman Eric Cantona was one of the manager's favourites and the catalyst for his run of success. Alex Ferguson worked as an apprentice at a typewriter factory in Glasgow when he started his football career. He grew into a handy striker, leading the goal scoring in the Scottish League for Dunfermline with 31 goals in the 1965-66 season. Ferguson played 317 games with 6 Scottish clubs throughout a 17-year career before turning his hand to management. After a brief stint with East Stirlingshire, he took over St Mirren in 1974, which was struggling in second division. It won the First Division title 3 years later. He was a hot-headed, strict disciplinarian from the start, and soon became known as Furious Fergie for his regular blow-ups. One of the highlights of his successful 8-year stint with Aberdeen was when he fined one of his players, John Hewitt, for overtaking him in his car on a public road. The European Cup Winners' Cup victory in 1983 against the might of Real Madrid, just the 3rd Scottish team to win the trophy, catapulted Ferguson's profile.
Well, I started at 32 years of age, which was young, and I had 2 particular talents. I played the game, and I had all my coaching certificates, all my badges. And the first lesson I learned when I became a coach with a small team from Scotland was losing. The minute you lose a game, you understand that your job is to find a solution to make sure you don't lose. My first job was to raise the mentality of a footballer, to give him a winning mindset and a character that doesn't let him down, because you don't leave your character in the dressing room, you take it on the field with you, no matter. So my first job was to create a winning mentality with my players. After that, I could work in technique and skill, tactics, whatever. The most important thing was to develop the character.
After being linked to a number of jobs in England, Ferguson signed with Manchester United on November 6, 1986, to replace Ron Atkinson, who'd been sacked. He didn't bring the magic touch straight away, and in fact there were murmurings about his job security after 3 unsuccessful years before he claimed his first piece of silverware, the 1990 FA Cup. Things changed dramatically after he signed a wild Frenchman named Eric Cantona, who helped Ferguson win his first Premier League title in 1992-93. And the damn wall busted. Trophy after trophy came flooding into Old Trafford as the legend of Fergie grew and grew. His forceful personality and siege mentality, which he would foster every season, was great for his team, but not for the media or opposition. But Ferguson didn't care. His greatest weapons were his grit, courage, and defiance. No public opinion could sway him, and no celebrity profile could impress him. Those who hate or disrespect Alex Ferguson, it's only because he snatched away their dreams of winning. Ferguson was a genius at developing his own and had the last laugh during the 1995-96 season. He was widely criticized for releasing stars Paul Ince, Mark Hughes, and Andrei Kanchelskis, and not bringing in any big names. But Fergie had a plan. He knew he had some young talent ready to shine, and the group, which included Gary and Phil Neville, Beckham, Scholes, and Nicky Butt, became known as Fergie's fledglings. The Red Devils went on to win the Premier League title, its third in the past 4 seasons, and also the FA Cup. One of Ferguson's greatest achievements came in 1999 when he won an unprecedented treble: Premier League, FA Cup, and Champions League. In the Champions League final against Bayern Munich, United scored twice in stoppage time of the second half to snatch a 2-1 victory. It was the calling card of his teams, scoring late goals in Fergie time. Ferguson was reticent to let his guard down too often, but he did that night.
Winning the Premier League that year and going on to win the FA Cup, and then obviously the Champions League in the final day of the campaign, it was really amazing, and couldn't tell you the joy and the satisfaction that was within that dressing room. And to see the manager in his element, he doesn't let his guard down too often. But that day he was like a kid. He was running around, he was jumping on everyone, you know, drinking champagne, celebrating like no others. And he felt that he had done the ultimate. I mean, he's done amazing thing in the game, and arguably the best manager, not just in our Premier League here, but around the world.
A month later, Ferguson received a knighthood in the Queen's Birthday Honours List for services to football. Over the next decade, Sir Alex mentored some of the best, with Rio Ferdinand, Cristiano Ronaldo, and Wayne Rooney, helping United to more silverware. In 2010, he became United's longest-serving manager, overtaking the great Matt Busby's record of 24 years.
There's so many great players. The history, people determine Manchester United in many ways. When did it start? They say the Munich disaster. Yes, I think that possibly brought the attention to the club. Maybe not the kind of attention they wanted at the time, obviously. But the rebuilding of the team by Sir Matt Busby to 10 years later to win a European Cup and doing it the right way, it sent a message to every Manchester United team thereafter. There is a way to do it. And I think we try to do that the best we can, because without question, that period of Manchester United is fantastic history.
His 12th league title at the end of that season was United's 19th, which surpassed Liverpool's record of 18. There was one more to come, and fittingly, it was in Ferguson's final season. The greatest manager in history bid farewell by taking charge of United for the 1500th time, an away fixture against West Bromwich Albion. And in keeping with the coaching Immortals career, it was an extraordinary game that finished in an incredible 5-all draw. Never before had Ferguson's well-used saying been more appropriate. Football, eh? Bloody hell. Up next on the Immortals, the Germans who shared more than just the same surname. Between them, they've scored 24 World Cup goals, and that's why the Müllers are German football royalty. Reputations are made or broken on the big stage. It's a cliche which works in a lot of sports. For football, the stage doesn't get any bigger than the World Cup. Some of the all-time greats have failed to deliver there, but if you're a German with the name Müller, then that's certainly not the case. At the 1970 World Cup, Gerd Müller scored 10 goals for West Germany. He returned 4 years later and scored 4 more, including the winning goal in the final against the Netherlands. His total of 14 goals stood as the all-time World Cup scoring record for 32 years, before Brazil's Ronaldo passed it, although he needed 5 more matches to do it. Thomas Müller's first international goal for Germany came at a World Cup. At just 20 years of age, the Bayern Munich striker earned a starting role for Germany's opening match against Australia in 2010. It was only his 3rd appearance for his country, and he wore the coveted number 13, which had been worn by his namesake. Müller scored the 3rd goal in Germany's 4-0 victory and followed it up with 2 goals against England. He scored in the 3rd minute of the quarter-final against Argentina, but was suspended for the semi-final, which Germany lost to eventual champion Spain. In the 3rd-place playoff against Uruguay, Müller again scored, making him the joint top scorer for the tournament with 5. At the 2014 World Cup in Brazil, Müller started with a hat-trick in the opening game against Portugal. He got the crucial only goal in the 3rd group match against the USA, and then scored Germany's opening goal in the stunning semi-final 7-1 blowout of host Brazil. Müller then played a key role in his country winning its 4th World Cup crown with a 1-0 defeat of Argentina. His 10 goals in 2 World Cups has him on pace to overtake former teammate Miroslav Klose as the tournament's all-time leading scorer. Klose scored 16 goals in 4 editions of the World Cup, but his hold on the record won't be for long, according to Gerd Müller. I am certain that Thomas Müller will eventually get the World Cup goal record. Gerd Müller was short and squat, awkward-looking and not notably fast, but he was the best goalscorer the Bundesliga had ever seen. The man known as Der Bomber seemed to have supernatural ability to be in the right place at the right time. In 15 years at Bayern Munich, he rewrote the record books, scoring 365 goals in 427 Bundesliga appearances. He still holds the single-season record of 40 goals in 1971-72. For 40 years, he held the record for most goals in a calendar year, scoring 85 in 1972. It took the best player of the modern era, Lionel Messi, to break it. Müller is recognized for changing the fortunes of Bayern Munich, paving the way for it to become a world powerhouse.
I once said lightly that what Bayern Munich stands for today, with what has developed at the Sabener Strasse, compared to the time in the mid-60s when we had our changing rooms in a small wooden hut, then I think without Gerd Müller, Bayern would still be in that hut. To a certain extent, it's true though. Without Gerd Müller's goals, the FC Bayern would not stand for what it does today.
One grateful recipient was Thomas Müller, who was no relation, although interestingly his father's name was also Gerhard. He was a product of the club's youth system, and like his namesake, was ungainly looking, a bit taller, but by no means an elite athlete. But he had a gift, and as one commentator put it, when God created space, Thomas Müller was already there. His brilliant positioning, versatility and knack for goals was a feature of Bayern's magical 2013 treble. He tallied 13 goals and 11 assists in the Bundesliga, 8 goals and 2 assists in the Champions League. And Müller also scored a goal in the German Super Cup final victory. Delivering Bayern titles in the same vein as Gerd did decades earlier has been the aim of the player, who proclaimed himself the space investigator.
Ach so, ja, jetzt fällt mir noch ein Ziel ein. Es hat noch keine Mannschaft geschafft.
One particular goal comes to mind. No team has ever won the Bundesliga title 4 times in a row. It's never happened before. There are many records which we have broken or missed out on over the last few years, and I like this particular one very much. It would be great, and that's what we'll work for.
Also das ist, das wäre eine super Sache und dafür arbeiten wir.
Müller achieved the four-peat in 2015-16 as he continued to push his case to be in the conversation with Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo about the best players on the planet. There is already one immortal named Müller. Another could be just one World Cup away. When we return, a Brazilian hero who upstaged the world's greatest player on the biggest stage. Carlos Alberto captained Brazil to World Cup glory. That in itself ensures godlike status. But throw in one of the greatest goals in the tournament's history and your legend is set as an immortal. The world's best defender getting a beautiful pass from the world's best player to score one of the greatest goals of all time. It's a thing of beauty, which Brazilian fans have relived for decades. The play started deep in Brazil's defensive half before Pelé laid on a perfect ball in the box for a streaming Carlos Alberto to smash it home from the right side into the bottom left corner. It was Brazil's final goal in its stunning 4-1 victory over Italy to claim the 1970 World Cup, which fittingly, Alberto lifted as captain of a side considered one of the best of all time. Alberto and Pelé had been teammates at Brazilian club Santos, and later for the New York Cosmos, where they joined forces with German star Franz Beckenbauer. In 2014, Alberto remembered his banter with Beckenbauer, joking how each had lifted the sport's greatest prize.
I have a friend in football called Franz Beckenbauer. He usually jokes with me by saying that he let me lift the old Jules Rimet trophy so he could lift the new one. Because after 1970, it would be the first time. But I tell him that we wanted to win. Brazil wanted to win in 1970. So you, Germany, could have the opportunity 4 years later to lift the new trophy.
Alberto revolutionized the game as the ultimate two-way player, an innovator who mastered box-to-box football. He represented his country 53 times, scoring 8 goals, but never played in another World Cup, with a knee injury ruling him out of 1974. After an extensive management career where he worked at 16 different clubs, both at domestic and international level, Alberto became a commentator with Brazilian television.
What you have to change in Brazil, in the Brazilian national team, is try to play the real Brazilian football, like we did before. And everybody in the world admire the Brazilian football. Touching the ball, dribbling, improve creativity. This was the Brazilian football that people love all over the world. But today, I don't know if anyone Even you, if you like the way the Brazilian football play, the Brazilian team plays. Nobody likes. And this is what you need in Brazil, to try to play again the real Brazilian football.
He died suddenly of a heart attack in 2016, sending football-mad Brazil into days of mourning for their hero.
He was a player ahead of his time. One of the first defenders to go forward in offense. A defender that would help in the attack. I believe that all the leadership that he showed for the team that we consider as one of the most talented teams in the history of football, Brazil's 1970 World Cup squad, was great. It's a model of leadership that we must all keep. He enters history as one of the greatest players of football history.
Brazil had to wait 24 years to win another World Cup after Alberto's 1970 heroics. For that, his country was always indebted to him, their immortal captain.